Okay, well, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're joining us for this family webinar this evening here in Washington Township Schools. Tonight, we are working on sharing more information with families about how they can prepare for education beyond high school and learn more about the Indiana 529 program. So, really excited to share this important information with our school community. Whether your student is in elementary school, middle school, or high school, we feel this is really relevant information. It is not too soon to start doing this important planning. So, I'm so happy to see you all. We are recording this webinar. We will plan to post it on the Washington Township website, in addition to some other resources that you'll learn more about tonight. I want to briefly introduce Mr. Myers. If you want to give us like a little wave really quick, Mr. Myers is one of our school counselors in Washington Township. He is the school counselor at Greenbrier. Hi, Mr. Myers. And we have
Hi.
two, hi, and we have two guests with us who are presenters for this evening. We have Philip Waddles from Indiana 529 and Melissa Rangel from Invest Ed. And we are going to kick off tonight with our section of the evening that is regarding beginning to plan for post-secondary education for your kids. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Melissa.
Yeah, sounds good. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right. Well, yes, thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa. I come from a company called InvestEd. InvestEd is a nonprofit. We're based out of Central Indiana, but we help people all across the state help figure this process out. And this process is preparing for post-secondary education, and specifically, how do we pay for that post-secondary education? So like Jen said, it is never too early to start looking at these things and start preparing. So today we're going to discuss benefits of continuing education after high school. We'll talk about choosing a career path and then finding a college to match that. And then we're going to get into the money, the different types of financial aid, the importance of that FAFSA, and then finally managing those college costs. So starting off with our benefits of continuing education. So here we have a chart. We have the value of higher education. On the bottom, we have our different types of degrees. So we have less than a high school diploma on the left-hand side, all the way to a doctoral or a PhD on the right. That yellow bar is your median weekly earnings, so how much money you're going to be bringing in per week if you have that type of degree. And then that blue line is your unemployment rate. So that is how likely you are to be unemployed if you have that type of degree. So very simply, the more you learn, the more you earn, right? The more education you have, the more money you're going to be bringing in, the less likely you are to be unemployed. And so when we say post-secondary education, it's everything. So a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, an internship, apprenticeship, certificate, trade school, whatever we're thinking about doing after high school, right? That counts as that post-secondary education. So let's talk a little bit about that debt. Higher education debt is a fairly common thing. 61% of graduates have college-related debt, right? A lot of people have to borrow in order to go to school. Some averages right now nationwide is that per person, it's about $42,673. That's after we finish school. That's what we owe back. That breaks down into about a $475 monthly payment. And when we're thinking about that, we got to be thinking about our mortgage or our rent and our groceries and our gas and our electricity and all those other things we got to pay for as an adult, on top of potentially a student loan monthly payment. So I have a little bit of trivia for you. So right now in the United States, we have more student loan debt than we have credit card debt, which is kind of hard to think about. So yeah, more student loan debt than credit card debt. Right now we have $1.8 trillion of student loan debt in the United States, which is a lot of money. 43 million people have student loan debt. I'm one of those 43 million people. Right, the whole point of learning this stuff is talking about this, getting ready now, is that we can hopefully try to avoid that debt, right? Preparing and saving and knowing our resources so we can have less debt if we do end up going to post-secondary education. So thinking about choosing a career path, right? This can be something that maybe you're thinking of right now. It could be from a while, but thinking about your interests and your strengths. What are we really good at? What do we like doing in our free time? And then our goals. Where do we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And so there's ways to gain experience, particularly in high school. First up is job shadowing. So if there's a career that your student is thinking about doing, find someone that does that career and then have your student follow them around for a day or two, right? Really see the ins and outs of that job and see if that's actually what they thought it was, right? Volunteering is a great way to give back to the community, also looks really good on resumes and applications, and can also tap into a career interest. And then internships are a really good way for students to experience the workforce, for workforce to experience the students, right? Again, looks really good on those resumes and applications. So we like to recommend a website to do some career exploration. We like to recommend mynextmove.org. So on My Next Move, it asks the question, what do you want to do for a living? And there's a couple different ways we can answer this question. First, in the green, I want to be, this is if we know a specific. So I want to be a neurosurgeon, and we type that in and we can see a career page, which I'll show you in a second. In the orange, I'll know it when I see it. This is if we know like an overall category, but we don't know a specific. So maybe I know I want to go into construction, but I don't know exactly what I want to do in construction. I can type that in and I can see different fields, right? That are potential jobs that I can do in construction. And then finally in the purple that I'm not really sure, this is a quiz. So it's 60 questions, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's really easy. It judges interests and strengths, and then from there gives careers based off of those interests and strengths. So when I did this quiz, they told me I like helping people and I like teaching, which is exactly what I do, right? So I really recommend taking that quiz. Eventually, when you find a career on My Next Move, it's going to show you kind of big picture what that job does and then day to day what that job does. It's going to show you type of education you need for that career, how likely that job is to exist in the future, which is pretty important. Another important thing is salary range, right? Thinking about how much money you may be making on the low end and on the high end when you have that career. Finally, maybe you're looking at this career page and you realize like, this doesn't sound like this is it. They're going to give you some suggestions on some other careers to look at as well, that are kind of similar to it to do some more career exploration. So again, that's mynextmove.org. We really recommend that for doing some career exploration to see what we want to do. Once we find a career, we then have to find a program or a college to match it. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. My first recommendation is using websites to do some exploration. So we would like to recommend College Navigator and College Scorecard. College Navigator, you can see, is going to give you a ton of information, things like tuition and fees, enrollment numbers, varsity athletics, campus security, all sorts of stuff like that. College Scorecard is from the U.S. Department of Education, and it's going to show you kind of the big picture. So things like 2-year, 4-year, public, private, city, rural, that kind of stuff. So I would recommend doing some base searches and looking at the schools like that from College Navigator and College Scorecard. My second recommendation is to go out to college fairs. Indiana, and specifically Indianapolis, has a ton of college fairs, particularly in the fall, but we also have quite a few in the spring as well. So I recommend going out to college fairs and talking with people from the schools themselves. And then third is actually going to the colleges themselves and doing visits. You can usually plan tours if you speak to someone at the college itself, but that is a great way to experience a school, is making sure you get on campus, walk around, get the feel of it, right, and trying to find that program. So when looking for a school, we say that you need to find the right fit, and that finding the right fit is 3 different categories: academically, socially, and financially. And all 3 categories are really important. So when we talk about academically, first off, this is kind of a no-duh one, is that you want to make sure the program or the major is offered at that school. Not all schools offer the programs or majors at every single school, so you got to make sure that the school you want to go to has the thing you want to study. You then want to make sure you have opportunities like internships and practicums, making sure that you're getting in the field as soon as you can. You don't want to make it to senior year of college and then get in the field and realize that, oh, this isn't what I thought it was and I don't like this, right? You want to try to get out there into the field as soon as you can. And then finally, study abroad or intercultural experiences. If you're interested in doing a little bit of studying abroad in a different country for a little bit or a long bit, then you want to make sure you have that opportunity if you want it. Next up is socially. So this is making sure that you feel part of the community. This is size, location, facilities. And as I just mentioned with college visits, that's the really key part of this, is making sure we get on campus and see if we like the feeling of campus. Not all college campuses are created equal. An Ivy Tech is going to look different than a Purdue, is going to look different than a Butler, right? So you want to make sure you're getting on campus and you like the size of it, where it is, the buildings, all those different types of things. You also want to make sure that you have professional and personal networking opportunities. This is key for after graduating. So you can call on people to talk to them about your field, ask questions, those types of things. I'm really close with a lot of people that I graduated with, plus my professors, and I really appreciate that. And then finally, housing options. This is significant to make sure you understand what the housing commitment is. A lot of public schools in Indiana will say you need to live on campus for 1 year and then you're off campus the other 3 years. Some private schools will say you need to live on campus all 4 years, and that's a pretty significant price difference. So you want to make sure you understand what those commitments are for living. Make sure you understand how long you have to be on campus, what is it going to cost for me to live off campus, all those different types of things when looking at a school. And then finally, we have financially. And maybe this is the most important of the three, although three are very important, but you want to make sure that the program or school is affordable. And this is the entire time you're in the program, not just first semester, but make sure you can afford it the entire time it takes to complete your degree. Kind of hand in hand is making sure the potential debt is manageable once the degree or certification is obtained. If you know that you are going into a field where you don't have a very high starting salary, but you're going to go to a school where you may have to take out a lot more debt in order to pay for it, that's going to be really hard to manage when you graduate. Whereas, right, if you know your starting salary, kind of like what we talked about with My Next Move, and we know that we're taking out a reasonable amount of debt, right, that's going to be more manageable once we graduate. And then finally, ongoing scholarship opportunities. We're going to talk about this in a lot more detail, but you want to make sure you're looking for scholarships the entire time in high school, in college. Make sure you're looking for scholarships. Keep applying. That is a significant part of this piece that we're going to talk about in a second. My final note here is about changing majors, programs, in schools. Just sometimes people change their mind about what they're studying or where they are, and that's okay. A lot of people do it. We just want to make sure that we try to do that as soon as we can. If you end up getting into your junior year of college and then realize you don't want to study this and you don't want to be at this school, that's 2 years that you may have to make up, right? So if we can try to make those decisions sooner rather than later, that's always best for us. All right, let's get into the money. So let's talk about our different types of financial aid. So we have two categories of money. We have gift aid and we have self-help aid. So gift aid is money that we really like. This is money that is gifted to the student to help them pay for their college. So things like grants and scholarships, that is a gift aid. So self-help aid money is money that we're getting from a different source. So money that's coming from a savings account or 529, money coming from a paycheck, money that we're borrowing from a loan. And we're going to talk about all of these in more detail. Starting off with the grants. So grant money is the first part of gift aid. So grant money is money that's coming from either the federal government, the state government, or sometimes the college itself to help your student fund their education. So if you look on the federal side, we have things like the Pell Grant, the SEOG, the Teach Grant. Some of those have ranges, so your student may qualify for some, all, none. It just kind of depends on the situation. Usually when we talk about grants, people know the Pell Grant because it's been around for a very long time. On the state side of things, we have things like 21st Century Scholars, the Frank O'Bannon. There's a lot of other state grants out there, and if you're interested in looking at them, I recommend going to our link there. But that is money coming from the state to help pay for the education. And then colleges may sometimes have institutional grants that they may award. So the key thing with grant money is that most grant money, you do not have to pay that money back if you receive grant money. So if you get the Pell Grant, if you get the 21st Century Scholars, that is money that you do not have to pay back because it is a grant and it is gift aid. The way you apply for grant money is by filing the FAFSA, which we're going to talk about in a second. But that is the application for grant money, is the FAFSA. And again, we're going to talk about that. The second part of gift aid is scholarships, and this is a really crucial part. So scholarships are broken into two categories, need-based versus merit-based. So need-based is because you have a financial need. Merit-based is because you're earning it in some way. A lot of people think scholarships are just based off grades, which, yeah, there are scholarships based off grades, but there's a lot of scholarships out there for a variety of reasons. So let's talk about how to find them. So we recommend looking on three levels. First is the national level. If you go to Google and type in free national scholarship search sites, you're going to find a ton of them. These are good websites to use. So there are a lot out there. They are good websites. They're reliable. If you are paying for a scholarship site, that's a scam. Don't do that. So on those free sites, your student in high school will eventually create a profile for themselves, tell them about their life, their extracurriculars, the things they do, all that different types of stuff. And that site will filter scholarships to them based off of that profile. So national side of things is where you find scholarships for all sorts of stuff. So if you have red hair, if you're left-handed, if you're really short, if you're really tall, certain ethnicity or race, something unique in your background, you have a certain hobby, you play a certain sport, there is probably a national scholarship out there for everything you can think of. So getting on the national sites and seeing what you can find. The second level is the college university level. This is making sure senior year of high school that we're applying to school on time, making sure that we're submitting our FAFSA, making sure that we are submitting our transcripts from high school. So that is really a big deadline year for senior year of high school. And then finally at the local community level, so the biggest bet is checking with your high school guidance counselors. Each counselor pretty much has a list of local scholarships that they keep track of during the year from year to year. They usually share that with the students and encourage them to apply to those scholarships. One of the biggest ways that you can apply for local scholarships is through the Community Foundation. So Central Indiana has a community foundation, and depending on what county you're in, you may have a different community foundation, but that community foundation is one of the best resources. Typically, the way that works is that the student eventually fills out one big application and applies them for numerous scholarships from the community foundation. But again, checking through different places like businesses, employers, churches, civic organizations, also all the community groups, right? Check to see if they have a scholarship that you can apply for. Local money is your best chance of getting money because it is a smaller group of people going after that money. Some of those scholarships are going to be specific to the high school, to the county, to the area, to what have you. But that means a smaller group of people is going after that money, and your student has a better chance of getting that money. Any money is good money. So even if it is a smaller scholarship, it's still money you didn't have before, and it's still going to help with that final bill. And you want to apply for as many as you possibly can, right? So speaking of, I know we have a variety of ages in here, but InvestEd does have a scholarship available. So the qualifications, you have to be 16 and over. So this is more towards our older clients, but 16 and over and live in Indiana. Application is your name and address, and then that's it. We're not checking for a GPA or an essay or anything like that. The way it works is that every year, starting in February, we pull one name a month for 5 months. So we're currently in the process right now, and give $1,000 each month. So it's a very easy scholarship to apply for. So if you do have a student that's 16 and over, they can go ahead and apply right now. You just have to apply once a year and you're in it for the full year, and then you can come back next school year and apply again. So again, that's our InvestEd scholarship, 16 and over. All right, let's talk a little bit about the self-help aid money. I'm not going to talk about the 529s yet because that's what our 529 person is here for. So self-help aid money is part of that savings account and the 529, but I'm going to leave that for Philip. But let's talk a little bit about working. So students may decide that they're going to work when they go to school. There are lots of different ways to work part-time. One of those ways is called the federal work study. So the federal work study is a partnership with the school itself that offers the student a job on campus somewhere. So think cafeteria, library, financial aid office, something like that. The idea is that the student works that job, university pays them to work that job, and then that money goes towards their bill at the university. So this is a nice way to work part-time. Job is local because it's on campus, right? Key thing with that federal work study is filing the FAFSA, because that is how you get qualified for federal work study. So again, that FAFSA, we're going to talk about it in 2 slides, right, is filing that FAFSA. And finally, the loans. When I talked about that $1.8 trillion of student loan debt in the beginning, that's where this is coming from, is the loan part. So I'm going to walk you through the different types of loans that we have here and kind of give you the basics of them, to just kind of give you a blueprint of what we're looking at. So the first loan I'm going to talk about is called the Federal Direct Student Loan. So the Federal Direct Student Loan is a loan from the federal government that is offered to the student, meaning it's in the student's name. Student is responsible for paying it back. So this is offered in limits. So freshman year students get offered 5,500, sophomore year is 6,500, and then junior senior year is 7,500 each year. Just because they're getting offered that money does not mean they need to take the money. If they don't need $5,500 to cover freshman year costs, do not take $5,500. If they only need 2,000 of it, only take 2,000. Where people often lose track of their money is the two words in this category, which is subsidized and unsubsidized. This has to do with how interest is applied, and the government decides it for you. So a subsidized loan means the government's going to cover the interest for the student while they're in school. So if we take out $2,000 in the very beginning of freshman year, it's going to stay $2,000 the entire time we're in school. And then after graduation, that's when it starts to gain interest. Unsubsidized means as soon as you take the money, starts gaining interest every month until you pay it off completely. So $2,000 does not stay $2,000 very long, right? It's going to start gaining interest right away. So that's where we really want to make sure if our student is taking their federal direct student loan, they understand what is going on there, they understand what those words mean, and they understand what kind of debt they may have after education. The second one on the screen is the Federal Direct Plus loan. The Federal Direct Plus loan is a loan from the federal government that is in the parent's name. So this is in a situation where maybe y'all are looking at your bill from the school and realize we need more money. So parents can apply for a loan from the federal government. It is a different application from the FAFSA, but it's on the same website that parents apply for, and you can see that it has a higher interest rate and a higher fee. And then finally, on private loans, this is where you're shopping around, going to different banks, going to different lenders, trying to find your best options, trying to find your lowest interest rate. Could be a variety of situations. It could be in the student's name. Student could have to have a cosigner. It could be an income check, a credit check, whole variety of things. But again, you're looking for your lowest interest rate. So the key thing with those loans is make sure we ask questions. Make sure you fully understand the loan terms before you accept anything, the student, the parent, whoever. And if you do have questions, please reach out to InvestEd. We have a specific team of people that handles loans that can help you with loan counseling and figure out the best process for you. So feel free to reach out to InvestEd. I'm going to share our contact information at the end. All right, I've been talking about this for the entire time, but let's actually talk about it. It's the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This is a form that is put out every year by the federal government to help you apply for the money I just talked about. So grants, some of those scholarships, the work study program, the loan, all of that money comes through this FAFSA. So the FAFSA is the application, right, that the federal government puts out. It is a different application every single year, so you have to wait for the appropriate school year to get released. But the way that this form works is that it takes in a ton of information from you and your family. So things like student income and assets, parent income and assets, how many people live in your household, what's the oldest age of a person in your household, just a ton of information to eventually spit out a number called the SAI, the Student Aid Index. What that is a number on a chart with everyone in the state, everyone in the nation to figure out where you are financially. The way it works is that the college's financial aid office will eventually look at that SAI number, look at your FAFSA, and from there offer you a financial aid offer, which is the grants, the scholarships, the work study, the loan, right? But again, in order to receive that offer from the school, it's really important that we have that SAI from the FAFSA to qualify for that money. So if you are worrying about the FAFSA right now and you do not currently have a senior in high school, then you do not need to worry, right? FAFSA is a thing that you start senior year of high school. You do not file FAFSA before then. If you do, it's okay. It's not going to hurt you. But typically the first year of FAFSA is senior year of high school, and then you are filing FAFSA every year your student is in school. So if your student is going to do a 4-year degree, right, you're going to end up filing 4 FAFSAs. A 2-year degree, 2 FAFSAs. So again, FAFSA is a senior year thing. It opens on October 1st of their senior year of high school, October 1st of every year. And then it's a every year thing until the student graduates. As far as deadlines, I'm going to come back to the chart in the middle. As far as deadlines go, the state of Indiana priority deadline is April 15th. So again, if you do not currently have a senior, you do not need to worry about this right now. April 15th and is in a couple days. So if you do have a senior and you haven't filed your FAFSA, you got to do that soon. But if you want to get any sort of money from Indiana, you got to file by April 15th. The middle part is about taxes. And so we have the current graduation years, 2026 highlighted right now. The way the FAFSA works is that it is going to look at taxes from both the student and or the parent. So just to give an example, if the student is graduating in 2026 this year, the way it works is they do 2 years removed. So 2026 minus 2 is 2024 taxes. So the current FAFSA that seniors in high school are filling out right now is looking at 2024 taxes. If you have any questions about what year of taxes they may be looking at, feel free to give us a call and we can help you out. So my final thing that I want to talk about a little bit is managing college costs. So managing college costs is a pretty significant thing, and there's some things we can do before we get to school. So one of the things in high school is taking AP classes or taking dual credit classes. So we're earning college credit before we actually get on college campus. A lot of times AP dual credit classes are free or cheap, very much compared to how much they would cost if you take them on campus. So if we can get those credits and get them before we graduate high school, that's great. Commuting versus living on campus. I'm not sure who I'm more or less popular with when I talk about this, students or parents. But if you can consider living at home rather than living on campus, this can save you quite a bit of money. I'm going to show you some prices on the next slide. But that can save quite a bit of money if you can commute and live at home rather than living and eating on campus. And then finally, taking summer and online courses. This is a great way to make sure that you're taking enough credits, make sure that you're on track for completing your degree. A lot of times, right, you can maybe potentially finish early if you take some of those classes, which is a good way to save money. My final thing is about the net price calculator. So a net price calculator is kind of like a what if. Maybe your student is considering a school and you're like, I don't even know if we can afford that. Well, every college has a net price calculator on their website. So if you go to their financial aid page, you can typically find that net price calculator. And what it will do is it's going to show you the cost of attendance for that school. So cost of attendance is how much the tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous expenses would cost for 1 year of school. They're then going to ask you questions about your finances and give you an estimate of what they think you're going to receive from grants and scholarships. They'll subtract that from the cost of attendance and give you that net price, which is how much you'd have to pay to go to that school. So like I said, this is a nice little what if scenario where maybe you want to compare Ivy Tech to Ball State to Notre Dame, right? And check out those net price calculators and see those differences. So what I have for you is an example net price calculator. This is for a public school in Indiana, so a Purdue, IU, Ball State, something like that. So at the top, we have tuition and fees, housing and food. So tuition and fees is classes, housing and food is living and eating on campus. You can see that housing and food is more expensive than the classes, right? So when I was talking about commuting rather than living on campus, that's where that price is. We then have estimates on books and supplies, transportation, and miscellaneous personal expenses. They give you these estimates to help you budget. When you go to school, when you go to college, you got to pay for your own books. And if you're in 5 classes at once, that adds up really quickly. So they're giving you that to help you budget. So for 1 year at a public school in Indiana, $28,500, right? So through the FAFSA, this person can qualify for a portion of the Pell Grant, which is money from the federal government, the Frank O'Bannon, which is money from Indiana, and then a scholarship from the actual college themselves. So they got $11,000 in gift aid, which is money that they do not have to pay back, which is money we use first. We then potentially get offered the federal work study, which is that part-time job on campus. So when we see that $3,000, we have to realize that they're not just like giving you the $3,000. That's the money they got to earn at the job, right? And then we have the student loan. So the student loan is 5,500, which is the freshman year loan, but it's split between subsidized and unsubsidized. So some of that money is going to gain interest right now. Some of it is going to wait until after graduation. So if we end up taking the whole financial aid package, the gift aid and the self-help aid, you subtract it from your cost of attendance, you have a remaining balance of $9,000. So $9,000, right? That's where we got to figure out how are we going to pay for it. So are we applying for scholarships? Did we get some scholarships? $3,000. Put it to the balance. Do we have a savings account or a 529? Put that towards the balance. Does the university offer a payment plan where we're paying month to month? See if we can do that. And then finally, do we need to look into private loans or a plus loan from the federal government? But notice that I mentioned those things last because we don't want to take on more debt if we don't have to, right? And that's why that scholarship piece and the saving piece becomes really important when we're thinking about paying for school. So I know I just kind of gave you a crash course in this, and it's a lot of information, but we are here to help. So one of the things we like to recommend is on our website, investedindiana.org. We have a ton of resources on there, including a lot of worksheets. They are there for you to print, download for free. You don't have to do anything, but they are there for you on a variety of subjects, that a lot of the ones that I just talked about. We also have something called the College Planning Toolbox. This is a great resource for families trying to plan for post-secondary ed. It kind of has everything in one, a financial tracking center, a calendar for reminders, a scholarship search tool, a school search tool, all sorts of things in there. Again, investedindiana.org, and go to resources. And then finally, our number and our email. So we are a completely free service. We do not charge you for anything we offer, any help we offer. We don't have anything to sell you. So really, it's free. And then when you talk to us, when you call us, when you email us, you're going to talk to a person. We don't have any robots. So I'm one of the people. But we are here to help with whatever you may need, right? So I wasn't able to see chat if anything was happening in the chat while I was talking. But if anyone has questions, I can take questions.
Melissa, I think your presentation was so thorough that they didn't have questions, but don't leave us
Perfect.
yet, everybody.
Oh
We
yeah.
have a part two to our presentation. But Melissa, we really appreciate your expertise and resources. I personally have a 16-year-old. You better believe I went ahead and signed her up for that scholarship. Love that idea. But we really appreciate your time. So, Washington Township community, we are now moving on to the second portion of our evening. We have Philip Waddles with us, and he is with Indiana 529. And I'm going to stop recording the Zoom because their information changes frequently. And so it's not always the best idea to record the content. But what we will do is where we're posting this video, I will put information about how to access the information from Indiana 529. And Philip will be sharing with us more information about how Indiana 529 does a weekly just public Zoom. So you can stay up to date and always hang around to see if there are updates. Philip, anything you want to say before I hit stop record?
No, that was outstanding. I appreciate it, Jen. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop record and kick it over to Philip.